Hello, welcome back to Closely Observed English. I'm your teacher, Christopher Walker. I've just had my morning coffee, so I'm ready to go. In this episode of Reading Closely, I'm going to take you very quickly through a piece that I really recommend on the New Yorker website. And this is a film review written by the great Anthony Lane. Here he's talking about the Quentin Tarantino film Once Upon a Time in Hollywood. The reason I want to look at this piece is not to study the vocabulary, because there's a lot to go through there. And it's not so much to study the way in which the review is written, but one key detail, something that is done 3 times, as far as I can tell, in the article, and that builds and resonates as an effect, so that when it happens the 3rd time, it really hits you with a punch. The reason I want to look at this is because I don't think Anthony Lane, despite his great genius, was able to put these 3 points directly in his writing, but instead that this review highlights the importance of going back and editing your work. This is why, for students doing the B2 First, C1 Advanced, and C2 Proficiency exams, I recommend that when you do the writing paper, you write on alternate lines instead of writing close, small writing letters all cramped, squeezed in together. Leave some space between your lines so that if there's time in the exam, you can go back into it and edit to achieve the sort of effect we can see here. So let's go into it. So if you haven't seen this film, forgive me. I hope that there aren't going to be too many spoilers, but the reason I've chosen to look at this now is because hopefully you've had the time to actually see this Tarantino film if you're interested in such things. So it's quite a long article. I recommend that you read it carefully and go through it in detail. But I'm going to highlight a couple of things. Let me bring up the annotation tools that I'll need in a minute. So let's go through. I'll give you a little idea about things. It starts with placing this film in the context of Tarantino's other work. And then we're introduced to Rick Dalton. This is the character played by Leonardo DiCaprio in the film, and he's an actor. This is an actor who's entering, let's say, the twilight period of his career. As Lane writes, he's not yet over the hill, but he's well past the peak. Now, here's where we get to the interesting part. He's reduced to playing heavies and scumbags, the bad guys in the TV shows that he's appearing on. And his agent explains to him the whole purpose of being this character is to be bested by the hero. And then we get to the part that I love just here. Getting bested is the worst. So that's really nice. I like that. And the way that it works is to best somebody is to defeat somebody. If you best somebody, you defeat them. Here, getting bested is kind of a passive thing. Getting bested is the worst. Now, I almost imagine that the first time that Anthony Lane wrote this article and it was going into the review, he might have used the verb defeat. Al Pacino explains to Rick the whole point is to be defeated by the hero. And then later, as he was coming back through it, he thought, wait a minute, that's really bad, isn't it? Being defeated, it's the worst. Wait a minute, worst. What's the opposite of worst? It's best. But best works with being bested. There we go. So he's kind of looking at the alternative meanings of words that are written the same. What do we call words that are written the same? We call them homographs. So homographs are words that are written the same but have different meanings. Here we've got best, and it leads us into a nice joke. Getting bested is the worst. So let me get rid of these. And we'll go on to the next occurrence of this. So we learn more about what happens. We are told what Brad Pitt's character is doing along the way. Then we go into the second section. You can see it's the next section because we have a big capital introducing the first sentence of the new paragraph. He's talking about how Tarantino has started to do something new with his movies, which is to recreate history as he sees it should have been, not recreating it in a way that is authentic or real or correct, but rather saying, oh, wouldn't it have been interesting if this had happened? So here we go. So we start learning more about the story, and this is where there are slight spoiler alerts, so be aware of that. So here we are, talking about where Rick lives. Rick's neighbors are Sharon Tate and her husband Roman Polanski, and people know that they were murdered by members of the Manson gang, and this happened here at this address. And this is where the film is set. Rick Dalton, Leonardo DiCaprio's character, lives next door. And if you've seen the film, again, spoiler alert, you should know that the Manson family inadvertently end up attacking Rick Dalton instead of going after Sharon Tate. Now, this is the part that I think stands out most. The fact that all of this is true is a matter of record. For Tarantino, however, records are made to be broken. So we have the same thing here. We've got the idea of a matter of record. A matter of record is something that is recorded as historical fact. But records are made to be broken. This introduces a different meaning of the word record. Here we're talking about the sort of records that athletes set. When Usain Bolt set a new world record for running the 100 meters as quickly as he did, you didn't see all the other athletes in the world just throw up their hands and say, okay, nah, done, finished. That's it. It's going to be that record forever. No, sporting records are made to be broken. The matter of record, public records, historical record, this is a different meaning of the word record. And that's how this kind of pun, this joke works. And again, I think that this was either planning on the part of Anthony Lane or editing. He went back into his work and was looking for opportunities to make these sort of changes. And I think it works so very well. But that brings us to the crucial element. One of the things that I read Anthony Lane for, because he's so good at this sort of thing. Suddenly, he goes literary and he starts talking about Joan Didion. And Joan Didion wrote a book of essays called The White Album. And one of these essays was talking about the period in which the film is set. And she's talking about this demented and seductive vortical tension. Vortical is a very nice word. You might want to know where this comes from. Vortical is an adjective, and it comes from the noun vortex. So a vortex, you imagine like a whirlpool, like this. The hole through that is the vortex. So this vortical tension, it sucks you in. Was building in the community. The jitters were setting in, she writes. As for the day after the massacre on Cielo Drive, I also remember this, and I wish I did not. I remember that no one was surprised. Now, this is the key part. It's in italics in Joan Didion's text. I remember that no one was surprised. This horrible murder occurred. The Manson family killed Sharon Tate, and I think other people as well were involved. No one was surprised. Then Tarantino may be searching for the same anxieties, but only in gleams and flickers do they show through the sheen of his movie. And two things alone freaked me out. One was the sudden, insane burst of brutality that is inflicted by men upon women. Yeah, I remember this part of the film, and I remember being a bit shocked by it myself. And the other was the reaction of the people around me in the auditorium to that monstrosity. They laughed and clapped. No one was surprised. The jitters have become a joke. So this is taking the same idea and transplanting it into this new context, which is effectively the same thing that we found here and here. So he set this up. He's shown us that he can take a word or an expression and move it to another context, another meaning for effect. And for the first two, it's humorous effect. But for the last one, it's dramatic effect. And because it's so dramatic, it hits you very hard. Now, I'm not saying that you should aim to do this sort of thing in a review or any other piece of writing in a Cambridge exam. What I'm saying is that the best writing, the most successful writing, requires planning and it requires editing. And you can do both of those in your Cambridge exam, in the writing paper. Plan ahead. Before you go straight in, sketch out boxes with your ideas. Think about how you want things to be organized, how you want to present your ideas. And then, like I said at the start of the video, leave gaps in your writing so that you can come back. There will be time. I'm sure there will be time, because there's time for most students to come back and to read through and look for those opportunities where you could say something a better way, say it with a bit more cleverness, let's say. So this was an example of the effect that can be achieved. I recommend that you read the whole thing, especially if you've seen the film. Read other pieces by Anthony Lane. He's very, very good. And you'll definitely learn something there. So that is that. That's the end of this video. If you're enjoying this series of reading closely, then please like this video. Have a look at the other videos in this playlist. Subscribe to the channel if that's something that you like doing. And until next time, stay safe, wash your hands, socially distance, and I will see you next time. Thank you very much.